In Genesis chapter 1, you've got a synopsis of the creation account. It is not the lion's share of the information we have at our disposal today. There's nothing wrong with it per se. It's just not complete. There are a couple instances where the texts have been massaged here and there, and that's a topic for another discussion. But the lion's share of what we have is based on the testimony of Enoch's eyewitness and the things he heard personally and saw personally, affirmed by two angels at every step of the way. And they really do help us understand why man was created, from what man was created, why man has to die and be raised again, because when we understand that from which we were taken, we understand what we have to return to. And so we are all beings. We are light of the world. A city on a hill is not hidden, cannot be hidden. So we are comprised of light. We are comprised of water. That's creation day 1 and creation day 2. We are comprised of earth, the land, creation day 3. Enoch's testimony is that our eyes were even fashioned after the sun. How many of you ever heard or said to somebody, boy, your eyes are on fire? Or you've heard someone describe another person as having eyes that are radiant. And this is all part of the consistencies from which the original man, Adam, was made and comprised, and we from him. The Lord summoned me and said to me, Enoch, sit down on my left hand, or on my left with Gabriel. Awesome. I mean, we should all be like, okay, so there's a left hand of Gabriel. By the way, it is from this location, the left, that Satan accuses. And one of Gabriel's job, being over the serpents, is to ward off the accusers. How many of you know that the accuser of the brethren is the adversary? And the other adversaries. They accuse us before the throne. And one of Gabriel's positions at the left one of his jobs is to chase off, ward off, and in doing so hedge in the presence of the Most High, as a sealer of one who girds or hedges the presence of the Most High. Enoch's testimony of the songs that are being sung in the heavens is just like what John in Revelation records. Only Enoch records it in much greater detail. So here Enoch is taken to the hashtag left hand, where Satan is. Now Satans, that is the whole crew, the leader and the followers, accuse before the throne. Bring it back down here on earth. The adversary has a person on earth that does his bidding during the Great Tribulation, and that is the leader of the left hand. And the term left hand in Arabic is the land of the left hand is the land of Balad al-Sham, and it is the north country in Syria. When facing, that's what they even call it that. Now, right hand is Yamin, as in Ben Yamin, a son of the right hand, where the term in a Semitic language, the term Yemen comes from. Yemen being in South Arabia. When facing due east, you've got Yemen to the right, south hand, southern Arabia, and you've got Balad al-Sham, the land to the left, the land of the left hand, where the Antichrist comes from, to the north. Okay, I wanted to make this tangible. Syria, by the way. I wanted to make that tangible so you can understand that the things we see in heaven are also connected to the things we see on earth. Enoch bowed down to the Lord, and the Lord spoke and said, Enoch, beloved, all you see, all these things that are standing finished, I tell you, even before the very beginning, all that I created from non-being, and visible things made from the invisible. Enoch's being told what happened, and we're going to find out the Father didn't even tell the angels who were created before Enoch about how he created. This is valuable testimony. For those of you watching on the internet, everybody's belly here is full, and their eyelids are starting to wane ever so slightly. So just hold fast to the promise, and stay awake here in this 11th hour. Hear, O Enoch, take these words, for not even to my angels have I told my secret, and I have not told them their own rise, or how they came to be, nor my endless realm, nor have they understood my creating, which I tell you today. This is the Father above speaking right to Enoch. What an awesome, awesome opportunity. For before all things were visible, I alone used to go about in the invisible things. And he gives Enoch an example. Like the sun, from east to west, and from west to east. But even the sun has a place to rest in and of itself, while I found no peace. In other words, the sun has a place and a course that is set for it. But I was creating all things, and I conceived the thought of placing foundations and creating visible creation. This is where Genesis 1 comes in handy. Someone recount their testimony of what Genesis 1 is. If you want to read it from there in Genesis 1, it would be great, because we're going to get a more detailed description. Just the first creation day 1, verses 1 and 2. This is going to be a micro description, and Enoch's going to give us a macro description. Go ahead.
Just 1 and 2?
Just 1 and 2, sure.
That's NIV.
That's fine, sure.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters.
Okay, next verse.
And God said, let there be light.
Let there be light. Good.
And God saw the light. The light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness.
Awesome. That's the micro description. Anybody have any major problems with that? I don't. Sounds legit to me. I wasn't there to see it, but so anything I can cook up surely should be subject to someone else's opinion. But watch what Enoch is told, and the level of detail and discretion that is shown to Enoch regarding that same little micro testimony. I don't say that to diminish it. I love that testimony. I'm just saying there's also more in-depth testimony that is well worth looking into. I commanded the very lowest parts, this is the Father saying, that visible things should come down from the invisible. And he names this thing Adoil, which means the light of creation. Watch this terminology. This should sound familiar in the apostolic writings. And Adoil came down, this light of creation came down very great, and then he assigns that light a gender. And I beheld him, and lo, he had a belly of great light. So there's your macro description of what just took place in Genesis 1. Light, visible light becomes, and it is. And what did he say? He said it was good. And it is good.
And separated it.
And he's divided it. Everybody now is wanting to unify unity. Unity. We want unity after we burn the cities to the ground, being of the left hand. The mystery of iniquity. Remember that where did iniquity and transgression begin? In the heavens. And the testimony of eyewitness testimony of Enoch is that Enoch sat down next to Gabriel, and Gabriel, one of his jobs is at the left to chase away the Satans. Satan, the leader of Satan, and his messengers, the host that was with him. That from the left. When the Father said in the Scriptures, when it says in the Scriptures, the wise man inclines to the, what does it say, guys?
Right.
And the
left.
Fool to the
Left.
It is in every way corroborated by eyewitness first-hand testimony. Not only of Enoch, but the holy angels. So the visible he said this, he said, from this light, which he names the light of creation, and gives him a gender of him, he said, let the visible come out of you, this light that he made in the beginning. Let me ask you, are you visible? Am I visible? Was Messiah visible? then if Messiah was visible, and am visible, and you are visible, and our ancestors were visible, and our progeny is visible, then we also came both down and out of this light that was created in the beginning. Has anyone ever been in the presence in a room when someone dies? Have you ever seen someone die? What happens to the eye? It goes dim, does it not? And the light leaves. It works the same way with an animal. I remember holding, we were holding Abby, one of our dogs, and she died, and also Tiki, another dog, and the light dims. Because that light returns to the Father of lights, in whom there is no darkness. Just like that. And shortly thereafter, given enough time, the earth will reclaim the portion of the soul that came from it. That is the flesh. Right? Will it not decay and return to that from which it came? It does. No mystery here. And so this light came undone, unraveled, expanded, and a great light came out. Anybody hearing any verses in the apostolic writings that it says a great light has come into the world and the world comprehended it not? That is in direct connection to not only Messiah, but his relationship to the light in the beginning that God the Father created, from which everything that would later become visible came. Awesome stuff. This one, anyway, I get excited. Let me keep going. So this light came out, and I was in the Father, the Creator, the Lord of Spirits, was in the midst of this great light, this visible light, and he says, and there is born light from light. So let me ask you this. Are our origins that of darkness, or our origins that of light? Light. That is correct. Our origin, reverse it. What happens, what part of us leaves when we die? Light. Right? And that happens right after breath leaves, doesn't it? I've witnessed it personally, in not only animals but human beings. So that's a reverse order. That's a restorative order working backward from the beginning. Isn't that neat? So the Father was in the midst of this great visible light, and he says, there is born light from light, there came forth a great age, and all creation which would come, which I had thought to create, and I saw that it was, what did he say? Good. Why did the Father stress what is good? Because he knew in the end, wide-eyed, filthy, reprobate, godless dreamers, espousing dark origins and chaotic primordial soups as their birthplace, would burn our cities to the ground thinking they're doing God a service. So he says, this is good, light is good. He later gives that light a name and calls it day, and also says that's good. We are sons of the light, sons of the day. We do not walk in darkness. That's not our origin. That doesn't guide us. We don't go to the cities and burn things to the ground in mobs of heathen revelry because we didn't come from primordial soup and galactic chaos, so we're not going to export that in the cities which God didn't call good. I placed for myself a throne. Elsewhere, he goes into detail. It was toward the end of the night last night. He says, I made a throne. I didn't need anybody to help me with it. I made it of my own counsel, by myself. I didn't go gather up a bunch of disgruntled, confused people, build a church, a synagogue, or a mosque, and have them place me behind a mahogany desk. Didn't do that. That's not what I did. I did it of my own thinking, took no counsel with anyone else. I made this throne. I did it. I'm probably hitting you where you're living. I've been there too. Don't mean to be nasty. The Father loves us, but his kingdom is not of this world. It is not of brick and mortar. Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her destruction, because the savages are coming to loot and plunder and steal the stuff because they're properly stimulated. They've got the stimming. The stimulus that now tells them they can't work. They don't need to work. They've got other mediators, masters, handlers in the cities. Messiah walked through the cities and the villages and he said, the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. And he was lamenting because the people were harassed and they were upset and downtrodden. And sound familiar? And he said, the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. But they were not willing. They were not willing to follow. And he says that above light, there is nothing else. And then I, that is the Father, bent up and looked up from my throne. This is like how the throne is described elsewhere in the canonical sources as being a light, a fearful thing to approach, to be sure, for a people that live in darkness and constantly fumble about in confusion, and we all do. Then the second thing he does, check this. Remember, that's all, isn't that awesome? That's an unpacking of that first clause in that second verse. That first verse being the talking about the hovering over the face of the deep. The second verse, the divisions of the light. That's an unpacking of the first verse. Wow, is all I can say. Awesome. Corroborated in and out of canonical sources. The second thing he did is what? The darkness. He separated. Man wants to unify and confuse. If you find yourself confused, it's because you have probably attempted to mingle two things that the Father had separated. Confusion with fusion. Meaning you have merged two things the Father separated. Clean and unclean, light and darkness, good and evil, bitter and sweet,